public apology video goes up.
Mm-hmm.
26 minutes later, a comment appears underneath it demanding $5 million.
Right.
Official Instagram records label it exactly as what it is, a comment.
Yeah, literally filed under comments.
Yet, it takes months for anyone with a badge to actually verify this. Welcome to the Oki Doke, Episode 2, 433.
We are going straight into the heart of the discrepancy today. I mean, the entire mission of this deep dive into the source material is to take you back to where this all actually started.
Which is September 16th, 2017.
Exactly. We're going to look at what the official investigative files actually contained and, compare that directly with the narrative that was eventually handed to a judge.
Right, and those two things should theoretically be identical.
They have to be.
But, well, as we found in the source material, they are entirely different. We're looking at a situation where the foundational documents used to authorize a raid on a citizen's home just completely contradicted the digital reality sitting right on the investigator's desk.
Yeah, and to understand the sheer scale of that contradiction, you really need to hold on to a specific framework as we go through this.
Let's lay that out for everyone.
So, the official record shows that Kevin Hart made 3 separate reports to law enforcement, basically claiming he was being extorted.
3 separate times.
Yes. Between August 2017 and April 2018. And the thing is, the narrative of what supposedly happened changed every single time a report was filed.
Right, which is just a huge red flag on its own. Let's establish those 3 reports clearly so you don't lose your bearings as we dig into this.
Okay, so the first one happens on August 25th, 2017.
Okay.
In that first report, someone contacts a celebrity gossip website called Media Takeout.
Right, so that is the target.
Exactly. Not Kevin Hart directly, but a gossip site. In fact, Kevin Hart's own attorney later confirmed on a recorded phone call that Kevin Hart was not the direct target of any demand during that specific time period.
Wow, okay, so the communication was directed at a third-party media outlet.
Right. Then we get to the second report.
And this is our sole focus for today's deep dive.
It is. This brings us to September 16th, 2017.
Right.
This incident involves a public comment left on an Instagram video and the subsequent hundreds of pages of subpoenaed corporate records that expose what that comment truly was.
And just to complete the picture for the season, there is a third report, right?
Yeah, there is. That one involves a Bitcoin demand sent via email, and they use the name El Jefe.
Which sounds like a movie villain.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to explore that specific event in a later deep dive because the mechanics of that third report fundamentally alter everything you think you know about this case.
Absolutely. Today, however, we are keeping the magnifying glass firmly on report 2. We want to show you exactly how a physical official record can completely contradict a legal narrative.
Right.
And, why understanding the mechanics of this discrepancy is vital. It really demonstrates the fragility of the justice system when those checks and balances just fail.
Yeah, and to comprehend how wide that discrepancy really is, we have to reconstruct the exact timeline of that Saturday afternoon.
Minute by tenth minute.
Exactly. Because in digital forensics, time is not just a detail. It is the objective truth.
You can't argue with the timestamp?
No, you can't. A timestamp cannot be influenced by human memory or, some curated legal strategy.
Right. So let's look at the inciting incident. At 4 minutes past 4 in the afternoon, Pacific time, Kevin Hart posts a video to his Instagram page. It's a public apology video. He is looking into the camera, apologizing to his wife and his children for what he explicitly calls a, quote, bad error in judgment.
And the context of this video is crucial for you to understand. He was referring to a private encounter with a woman named Mantia Sabag in Las Vegas.
Right.
And that encounter had been secretly recorded without his knowledge.
Yeah.
In his public statement, Kevin Hart explained that his stated goal was to get ahead of someone who was trying to make money off his mistakes.
Right. So the strategy was to essentially remove the leverage.
Exactly. By coming clean voluntarily, rather than allowing someone to financially exploit the existence of that recording.
And I really want to focus on the medium he chose for this strategy because the context of the platform matters immensely here.
It changes everything.
It does. This video went up at 4 minutes past 4 on a completely public platform.
Right.
Anybody in the world with a smartphone and an internet connection could just open the application, navigate to his page, and watch it.
Yeah. It was not a private message to a select group of friends.
No, not at all. It
What?
wasn't a hidden story. It was broadcast to tens of millions of followers instantly.
And when a public figure with that level of global reach posts a highly vulnerable, controversial video, the reaction is not just instantaneous.
It's chaotic.
It is absolute chaos.
Yeah.
The algorithms prioritize engagement, pushing the video to the top of everyone's feeds, drawing in, both dedicated fans and just random observers.
Yeah.
So the comment section immediately becomes a flood of public opinion.
Right. Which brings us to the exact timing. At 33 minutes past 4, which is exactly 26 minutes after the apology video went live for the entire world to see, an account using the name Mr. Jude leaves a comment in that public comment section.
Right.
According to the official record, the comment reads, quote, "Give me $5 million or I am releasing the video. No need to make this go public. You had your chance."
And then just 4 minutes after that initial comment, at 37 minutes past 4,
Okay.
a secondary account responds directly to the Mr. Jude comment.
Right.
The username on the second account is Young Swoop.
Okay, we need to pause here and really make this digital landscape concrete for a second.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Because terms like digital footprints and Instagram threads, they can start to feel a bit abstract, detached from the physical world.
They definitely can.
This demand for $5 million was not a shadowy, encrypted message sent to Kevin Hart's personal, secure inbox. It was not a handwritten note slipped under his windshield wiper in a dark parking garage.
Right, exactly.
This is the digital equivalent of walking into a packed, massive sports stadium during a championship game.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right, standing in the middle of the bleachers and just shouting a threat through a megaphone.
Yep. Every single person sitting in that stadium could hear it.
Or in this case, every single person scrolling that public Instagram page could read the threat.
And that analogy perfectly illustrates the mechanical flaw in the extortion narrative they tried to build.
How so?
Well, extortion, as a criminal enterprise, relies entirely on secrecy. The leverage is the secret itself.
Right. If it's not a secret anymore, you have nothing to sell.
Exactly. The perpetrator is essentially saying, pay me, and I will keep this information hidden.
Right.
So if the perpetrator is screaming the demand in a highly visible public forum, 26 minutes after the secret has already been acknowledged by the target on video.
It makes absolutely no sense.
Zero logical sense. You cannot threaten to expose something that the target has just voluntarily exposed to millions of people.
Right. Which brings us to the first massive contradiction in the official investigative record.
This is where things get really messy.
Yeah. Kevin Hart's attorney, Andrew Bretler, told the lead investigator a very specific, curated story about this sequence of events. The attorney claimed that the Mr. Jude comment, the $5 million threat, was made before Kevin Hart posted his apology video.
Yeah, so the narrative formally handed to the law enforcement investigator was that the $5 million threat was the catalyst for the video.
Right.
It painted a picture where the threat arrived first, placing Kevin Hart under immense duress and, basically forcing him to go public in a defensive maneuver to neutralize the extortionist's leverage.
But, how does a legal representative present that sequence of events when the digital timestamps objectively prove otherwise?
That is the million-dollar question.
We just walk through the raw data. The video goes up at 4 minutes past 4. The comment goes up at 33 minutes past 4. The threat was posted 26 minutes after the apology was already public knowledge.
Yeah.
The chronological reality completely inverts the attorney's narrative.
It really does. And it reveals the absolute danger of building a criminal investigation on a preliminary narrative rather than looking at the raw data.
Right.
There is a canyon-sized difference between a preemptive, targeted extortion threat that coerces a man into a public confession.
Which is a serious crime.
Exactly. Versus a random public comment reacting to a confession that is already live, trending, and dominating the internet.
Yeah. The first scenario is a coordinated criminal shakedown. The second scenario is literally just the internet reacting to the internet in real time.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And because the timeline provided by the legal team fundamentally clashed with the objective reality of how social media functions, well, the investigator was forced to go to the source.
They had to get the actual receipts.
Right. They had to bypass the narrative and pull the official digital records directly from the platform.
So let's talk about those records. Because in mid-October 2017, the investigator sends a legal demand, a subpoena, to Instagram. And Instagram complies with the court order. They compile and send over their official corporate files related to the accounts in question.
And we really have to emphasize the sheer volume and weight
Yeah.
of the evidence that arrived on that investigator's desk.
It wasn't just a couple of printouts.
No, not at all. These were not a handful of screenshots hastily taken by a publicist on a cracked iPhone.
Right.
These were not rumors. These were official, subpoenaed corporate records generated by the platform's back-end servers.
651 pages of raw, unalterable data.
651 pages. When you subpoena a tech giant, they do not just send you the text of the messages.
They send the metadata.
Exactly. They send the time it was posted down to the millisecond. They send the structural architecture of where that data lived on their servers. And right there, inside that massive stack of official records, on page 283, is the $5 million comment.
Just printed right there in black and white.
Right. And the specific architecture of that document is the key to dismantling the false narrative here.
How so? Walk us through it.
Now, corporate databases are highly structured, right? Data is categorized so the system knows exactly how to display it to the user.
Okay, that makes sense.
When Instagram handed over page 283, the section where the Mr. Jude post was filed carried a very specific, undeniable, categorical label.
What was the label?
It was labeled comments.
Comments, just comments.
Yes, it was not labeled direct messages. It was not filed under private communications or secure user-to-user transmissions.
Right.
The corporate record explicitly, technically, defined it as a public comment.
Okay, so the official corporate files confirm it as a comment, and the metadata confirms it was posted after the video was public. But honestly, the most staggering part of those hundreds of pages of records is what happens when you search them for the primary suspect.
This is where the record speaks the loudest.
Yeah, because when the records were scrutinized, looking for the connection, the digital thread that ties all of this activity to JT Jackson, what did the data actually reveal?
A complete void.
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. There is a total, absolute absence of JT Jackson in those official records.
But how does digital forensics prove a negative? Like, what exactly is missing from this data dump that should be there if he were actually involved?
That's a great question. When we talk about digital footprints, we are looking for very specific identifiers.
Okay.
First, there is no mention of the name JT Jackson anywhere in the account creation data or the recovery fields.
Zero.
Second, there are no phone numbers connected to him used for two-factor authentication or account verification.
Right.
Third, and this is probably the most important part, there are no IP addresses matching his known locations.
And an IP address is essentially the digital routing number, right?
Exactly. It shows exactly where a device connects to the internet.
Okay. Got it.
Furthermore, there are no associated MASI addresses.
Wait, let's pause and define an MSI address for a moment, because that really is the nail in the coffin for digital evidence.
It really is.
Because an IP address can change, right? Like if you walk from your house to a coffee shop down the street, your IP address changes.
Yes, exactly. But a MASI address, which stands for Media Access Control Address, is the permanent physical fingerprint.
Physical hardware.
Right. It is burned into the network chip of a specific laptop or a specific cell phone at the factory.
Wow, okay.
So you can mask an IP address with a virtual private network if you want to.
Sure, people use VPNs all the time.
Right. But the hardware ID is much, much harder to hide from the underlying application data. And the records provided by Instagram showed a complete and utter void of evidence linking any device owned by JT Jackson, any location associated with him, or any personal identifier to the Mr. Jude account or the Young Swoop account.
Okay, but if the data proved JT Jackson was not behind the accounts, it must have pointed to someone else, right?
It did.
Because we know the records eventually unmasked one of the users. We actually have the written, formal statement from the man behind the secondary account, Young Swoop.
Right.
His name is Jason Dooley.
Yeah, and Jason Dooley provided a written statement that confirmed exactly what the timestamps and the server metadata were already suggesting.
Which was what?
He stated on the record that he saw the apology video already public on the internet.
It was just in his feed.
It was just in his feed. He saw it, read the comment left by the Mr. Jude account, and decided to engage in what is universally known as trolling.
Right. And for anyone unfamiliar with the mechanics of internet culture, trolling is basically the act of leaving a deliberately provocative, inflammatory, or just bizarre comment on a public forum entirely for the purpose of getting a reaction.
Exactly.
There is no grand criminal conspiracy. There's no underlying plot. It is literally just throwing a digital rock at a hornet's nest to watch the swarm react.
That's a perfect way to describe it. And in his statement, Jason Dooley confirmed two absolutely vital pieces of information that completely shattered the state's premise.
Okay, what were they?
First, he confirmed that he had never been in a private conversation with Kevin Hart.
Okay.
Second, and this is infinitely more important to the justice system, he confirmed that he had never even heard of J.T. Jackson before any of this began.
Seriously, think about the gravity of that statement for a second.
It's massive.
The person actively interacting with the alleged extortion threat on Kevin Hart's page was a random internet user who had literally zero ties to the man the police were investigating.
Zero ties. None.
Let's recap exactly where the investigation stands at this specific moment in time.
Good idea.
It's mid-October 2017. The lead investigator of the Cybercrime Division is sitting at her desk.
Right.
She has hundreds of pages of subpoenaed corporate data. Those pages definitively prove the $5 million demand was a public comment. They prove it was posted 26 minutes after the apology video was broadcast.
Yeah.
And they contain zero links to J.T. Jackson.
Yeah.
So, objectively speaking, what is the logical next step for the lead investigator of a specialized cyber unit?
Well, this is the moment the investigation takes a turn that just defies all standard law enforcement protocols.
Especially for a technology unit.
Right, particularly for a specialized tech unit.
Yeah.
Because within those hundreds of pages of data, there was a direct, actionable lead.
What was it?
The files for the Mr. Jude account actually included a registered email address.
Wow. Okay, this is not abstract data anymore. This is a direct line.
It is a massive lead.
An email address is a digital thread you can pull that leads straight back to the person who actually sat at a keyboard and typed out the $5 million comment.
It's the primary, most glaring digital footprint in the entire case file.
Yeah.
When you have an email address, you can subpoena the email provider, whether it's Google, Yahoo, Microsoft, whatever, and obtain a whole new set of IP addresses, recovery accounts, and user data.
Right. You just follow the breadcrumbs.
Exactly. But when questioned later under oath in open court, the lead investigator of the Cybercrime Division admitted she never attempted to contact that email address.
Wait, are you serious? She never sent a single email?
Not a single message.
To the one address officially registered to the account making the $5 million threat?
Not one. Her justification, which she stated on the official court record, was that she did not know who she would be talking to if she emailed it, and that she preferred to meet people in person.
I'm struggling to even process the logic of that excuse.
It's pretty hard to wrap your head around.
How does the lead investigator of a cybercrime division, a specialized unit designed, funded, and explicitly trained to handle digital evidence and unmask anonymous online actors?
Right.
How do they justify ignoring the primary digital footprint in their own case file because of a preference for in-person meetings?
You can't.
You are investigating cybercrime. By the very definition of the job, you do not know who you are talking to until you pull the digital thread.
Exactly.
You can't knock on the front door of an email address.
You really can't. And it raises a profound question about the competence and the investigative standards of the unit handling this case.
To put it mildly.
Right. I mean, when your entire mandate as a division is to track digital actors through cyberspace, refusing to send an email because you cannot physically shake the person's hand is fundamentally incompatible with the job description.
Yeah.
It is basically a willful refusal to investigate the actual evidence in front of you.
And if we want to see how that investigative thread should have been pulled, we really only have to look at what happened when the defense got involved.
Right. Because J.T. Jackson's defense attorney, Jacob Glucksman, eventually got his hands on those exact same corporate records.
He did. And the asymmetry of effort here is just staggering.
It really is.
Using the exact same records the state possessed, Glucksman actually acted like a proper investigator. He reached out.
Yeah.
He tried contacting the Mr. Jude email address and received no response.
Okay, which happens.
Right. So he pivoted and looked at the other account in the records, Young Swoop.
Yep.
He sent one single message to the Young Swoop account.
One message. That is literally the entirety of the effort required.
And he got a response.
Wow.
Jason Dooley wrote back to the defense attorney, confirming he was just a random internet user trolling a public post with absolutely no ties to J.T. Jackson.
So a defense attorney, working on his own, figured out the actual truth of the situation with one single message.
Yeah, one message. A message that a fully resourced cybercrime division, with all of its personnel, its operational budget, and its state-backed authority, completely failed to send, despite sitting on the evidence for months.
It's unbelievable. And despite possessing this exculpatory evidence.
Right.
Despite having corporate records that proved the threat was a reactive public comment,
Yeah.
and despite totally ignoring the digital leads that would have proven J.T. Jackson's non-involvement, the investigation did not pause.
No.
It did not reassess. It moved forward.
Yeah.
And it moved into its most destructive, irreversible phase.
Because having the files on your desk is one thing. What you do with them and how you present them to the rest of the legal system is another. Which brings us to the document and the doorway.
Okay, before we delve into the specifics of what was actually written on that document, it is really vital to impartially explain the mechanics of the legal system regarding search and seizure.
Yeah, that context is essential here.
The gravity of this next step cannot be overstated. In our legal framework, law enforcement cannot simply decide to kick down the door of a private citizen's home and rummage through their life based on a hunch.
Right, there are rules.
There is a strict constitutional protocol. An investigator must draft an affidavit.
And what exactly is that, for those who don't know?
It's a document where they write down what they believe to be true, outlining the probable cause. They must swear an oath to its accuracy under penalty of perjury, and they must present it to an independent judge for review.
Which is supposed to be the ultimate check and balance.
It is.
But the friction point of this entire system is that the judge relies entirely on the investigator telling the objective truth about what is in their files.
Yes.
The judge does not have the time or, frankly, the resources to personally sift through hundreds of pages of raw Instagram data.
The judge is not conducting a parallel investigation. The entire protection of a citizen's civil liberties against unreasonable search and seizure relies completely, 100%, on the factual integrity of that sworn affidavit.
Yeah.
The system operates on an honor code. If the document presented to the judge is built on a fiction, the independent review process is compromised and the entire protective system collapses.
Which brings us to January 18th, 2018. This is 3 months after the Cybercrime Division received the data from Instagram. 3 months of having the objective truth sitting right there in a file.
Yeah.
The investigator submits a sworn document to a judge to obtain a search warrant for J.T. Jackson's home. So what was actually written in that document?
The document submitted to the judge presented a narrative that was entirely divorced from the investigator's own files.
Completely divorced.
Yes. The sworn affidavit described a $5 million extortion demand that was sent directly to Kevin Hart by email.
Right.
Furthermore, it claimed this direct private email was sent between August 25th and August 30th, 2017.
But that timeline is completely fabricated.
100%.
We just went over this. The corporate data proved objectively, with unalterable server metadata, that the $5 million demand was a public Instagram comment.
Right.
Not a private email. And it proved it was posted on September 16th, not in late August.
The discrepancy is profound. I mean, the investigator meticulously swore to a narrative of a direct, private, preemptive email threat occurring in late August.
Yeah.
But her own files, which she had possessed for a quarter a year at this point, proved it was a reactive public comment made in mid-September.
So the obvious question here is why? Why would a law enforcement officer present a completely different narrative to a judge? Like, what is the mechanical benefit of altering those specific facts?
Well, consider the legal threshold for probable cause.
Okay.
If an investigator writes down the absolute truth, if the affidavit says, Your Honor, a random internet troll left a public comment on a celebrity's widely viewed apology video 26 minutes after it was posted, and we have zero digital evidence connecting this troll to the suspect.
What happens?
No judge in the country is going to approve a SWAT raid on a citizen's home based on that.
Absolutely not.
A public comment by a stranger does not justify a home invasion. You need a direct, targeted, private extortion threat to clear the bar for probable cause.
Right.
So that is the narrative that was manufactured and presented on paper.
And because that false narrative was presented on official paper carrying the weight of a sworn signature, the judge approved the warrant.
They did.
The justice system rubber-stamped the authorization because the system operates on the assumption that the sworn document matches the physical files.
Yeah, the judicial rubber stamp has real-world devastating physical consequences.
Yeah, it does. Let's examine exactly what those consequences look like. The date is January 23rd, 2018. The raid occurs. Law enforcement arrives at J.T. Jackson's home in the early morning hours. The door is physically torn off its hinges. Armed officers enter the residence. And the timing of this raid just amplifies the trauma, honestly.
It makes it so much worse.
J.T. Jackson's wife is directed to the doorway by armed police on their wedding anniversary.
Wow.
It also happens to be his father's birthday. The physical, emotional, and psychological violation of that specific moment is just absolute.
And we really must attribute this devastation strictly to the official record.
Right.
Because this was not a tragic, unavoidable accident.
No.
It was not a simple clerical error. This was the direct, foreseeable result of a legal document built on a completely inaccurate premise.
Yeah.
And the professional fallout for J.T. Jackson was immediate and total. The records show his career was thriving prior to this raid.
Oh, absolutely.
He went from having 200 credits and booking 13 jobs a year down to zero.
Zero.
Absolute zero.
Yeah.
His livelihood was dismantled, his reputation was rendered radioactive in his industry, and his family was completely traumatized.
Yeah.
All of it was authorized by a signature on a document that flagrantly contradicted the very files sitting right there on the investigator's desk.
For nearly 2 years, J.T. Jackson's life is effectively in ruins. He cannot work, his door was kicked in, and the objective truth of how that warrant was obtained was just sitting there, buried in those hundreds of pages of corporate data waiting to be brought into the light.
Right.
And that moment finally arrives in the courtroom.
It does. The truth finally entered the public record, under oath, on September 23rd, 2019.
Take us into that courtroom. What is the dynamic like during this cross-examination?
Okay, so we are in open court during a preliminary hearing. Defense attorney Jacob Luxman is questioning the lead investigator on the witness stand.
Tense.
Very tense. Because cross-examination is all about establishing control and forcing a witness to confront the documentary evidence.
Right.
The transcript of this specific exchange is basically a masterclass in dismantling a false narrative piece by piece.
Wow.
Glucksman systematically interrogates the foundational elements of the state's case, forcing the investigator to reconcile her sworn affidavit with the physical files.
And a crucial admission emerges from that transcript regarding the emails.
Yes, a massive one.
Because for a long time, the public narrative and the narrative fed to the judge was that there were threatening emails demanding money.
That was the perception carefully cultivated by the prosecution.
Right.
But under oath, under the pressure of cross-examination with the documents physically present in the courtroom, the investigator was forced to analyze the actual content of those emails.
And what did she say?
Her admission completely changes the paradigm of the case. She confirmed there was no extortion in any of the emails.
No extortion.
None. When asked to legally define the email communications between the anonymous accounts and the media outlets, the lead investigator explicitly described them as, quote, business deal.
A business deal.
A business deal.
Not a criminal shakedown, not a coercive threat. A transactional business deal being shopped to gossip sites. If the investigator admits under oath that the emails were not extortion, what was the actual basis for the extortion charge then?
Well, this is the culmination of the entire deep dive. Glucksman asked her, directly and unequivocally, what the actual basis for the extortion attempt was.
Yeah.
I mean, if the emails were just a business deal, where is the crime that justified the raid?
And her answer is permanently etched into the official court record.
It is. The investigator stated, under oath, that the Instagram comment was the only basis for the extortion attempt.
Let's synthesize the sheer crushing weight of that admission for a second.
Please do.
Let's clearly define what the only basis actually means in the real world. The only basis for kicking down a door in the early hours of the morning.
Right.
The only basis for terrorizing a family on their anniversary. The only basis for taking a professional actor from 200 credits a year down to zero.
Yeah.
Destroying his reputation globally and draining his finances fighting a criminal charge. The only basis for all of that institutional violence was a public comment.
A public comment.
A comment literally labeled comments in the official corporate records.
Yes.
A comment left 26 minutes after the apology video was already broadcasting to millions. A comment left by a random stranger who had absolutely zero ties to J.T. Jackson.
Right.
That was the sole, solitary basis for the entire destruction of a man's life by the state.
When you lay the facts out chronologically, like, removing the emotional rhetoric and just looking at the mechanics of the timeline, the structural failure of the investigative process is undeniable.
Completely undeniable.
The corporate data arrived. It showed a reactive public comment by an unconnected internet troll. The investigator ignored the direct digital leads that would have proven this immediately.
Yep.
3 months later, a document is sworn to a judge claiming a private, direct email threat occurred at a completely different time. The warrant is signed. Based on that fiction, the door comes down, the career ends. And nearly 2 years later, the investigator casually admits on the stand that the only real basis was the public comment that her own files proved was meaningless from the very beginning.
It is a devastating summary of systemic failure.
It really is.
The tension between the official records and the document that was signed and handed to the judge highlights a terrifying fragility within the justice system because the system works almost entirely on the honor system at the warrant phase. It assumes that sworn statements reflect the factual files.
Right.
But when they don't, when an investigator decides to curate a narrative rather than report the facts, the system has no built-in alarm bell.
There is no fail-safe.
There's none. It just grinds forward, rubber stamping the paperwork, and crushes whoever happens to be standing in front of it.
Which leaves us with a critical, profound question to consider as we conclude our analysis of this specific event.
Okay, let's hear it.
If the constitutional protections against unreasonable search and seizure rely entirely on the absolute truth of the investigator's sworn document,
Right.
what happens to the presumption of innocence when the system completely fails to verify the very documents it rubber stamps?
Wow, yeah.
How safe is any citizen's front door, really, when the official manufactured narrative is allowed to override the official objective records?
That is a thought that should concern anyone who relies on the integrity of the legal system. Because if a citizen's door can be kicked in based on a completely contradictory affidavit, despite hundreds of pages of evidence proving the opposite, it means the procedural safeguards are basically illusory.
They really are.
But if you think this is where the paper trail ends, you are mistaken. Next week on the Oki Doke, we look at the very first document in this chain.
Oh, this part is wild.
The one that authorized the Instagram records in the first place. J.T. Jackson's legal team had 3 independent experts examine the physical paper itself. They worked separately, they shared no conclusions with one another, and they all found the exact same vital component completely missing from the page.
It's going to be a fascinating discussion.
So if this deep dive challenged what you thought you knew about this case, pass it to someone who has only heard the initial public narrative. Episode 2 of the Oki Doke ends here. We're back next week.